How fair would you say it is to characterise Paul Pogba as an enigma? So I mean by that, he can play well, other times not so much. Do you think that's a fair characterisation of him as a footballer, an enigma?
Doesn't make sense right now. He's injured, and most likely, I mean that he's a player. I mean he won the World Cup with France, so he's one of he's such a good player that he was a regular starter for a team like France. And we all know what kind of potential he has and what kind of good player he can be. But he was quite like a few other players, just struggling to get his best performance sustainably on the pitch for a team like Manchester United. And this was not only the case this season or in the last couple of weeks. As far as I remember, this was also the case in earlier years.
Why?
Well, that's difficult to say. If myself or other coaches knew that, it would probably have been easier to change that. But I don't know. But right now, it doesn't make sense to think about that because, as I said, he won't be available for the game tomorrow, and most likely not for the other 4 upcoming games. And as it seems right now, he will not renew his contract. And I don't know. Maybe the club or Eric will also not want to renew the contract. I don't know, but it's most likely that he won't be here anymore next season.
Ralf, more high-profile and sort of decorated coaches than Erik ten Hag have been at this club and effectively failed. The likes of Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho have won titles all over Europe. What makes you convinced and the board convinced that Erik can succeed where they have failed?
I think I spoke about that 5 minutes ago. It's important. Obviously, I think he's a good character to start with. From all I heard from people who have worked with him, he's a very good character, very communicative, very much caring himself, doing things himself. Obviously, he needs the assistance of the whole club, of all the people inside the club. I think he will get that. He will hopefully have the chance to mold, as I said, a new team together with the scouting department, together with the board, which is necessary, obviously. And for me, this is the most vital part, that the club manages to get in the best possible players and also change the attitude. Also the energy, it's also for me a question of energy. I think we need positive energy for the new team, and this is also important for the new manager. And if he gets that, I mean, we spoke about other clubs that were in a similar position as Manchester United 5-6 years ago. So if the right lessons are being learned from what has happened this season, this could be one of the few good things about a season like we are going through right now. That at least you know that it's which kind of screws we need to turn, which kind of things we need to change. And if that happens, I mean, why should Erik ten Hag not be able to be as successful as he was at Ajax? So it's probably not it's not the manager's quality. It's about changing all the other things that have brought the club into a position as we're in right now.
Patience the key, though. Is patience the key? Because you said it could take 2 or 3 windows, and then after Liverpool defeat, you said you're 6 years behind Liverpool. So his patience, he's got to be given time, hasn't he?
I would rather say it's more the level of expectations, and this has also got to do with patience. Yes, but I mean, in a club like Manchester United, it's difficult to tell people, be patient, it will take a little bit of time. But we just have to face the current situation. I mean, we lost on aggregate against Liverpool 9-0. We lost against Manchester City on aggregate 6-1. The team even lost against teams like Watford 4-1. We lost against a team like Everton, who were not full of confidence, 1-0. This is just the reality, the sad reality, but and therefore I think it also makes sense to have a little bit of sense of reality. I wouldn't even call it patience, but if the sense of reality that we have to face and just accept and acknowledge, I wouldn't say accept, but acknowledge, this would also help Erik ten Hag for the future.
Eric posted something on Instagram that effectively endorsed dropping Harry Maguire tomorrow. Would you speak to him? Eric Bailly posted something on Instagram where he effectively endorsed Harry Maguire being dropped and him playing ahead of him. Is that something that you'll speak to him about? And is also that another example of the kind of character that the squad, the club, cannot have next season?
I'm on Instagram and I'm not communicating on Instagram, not at all.
It's a point of discipline, I suppose. Do you think that he's got to be told he shouldn't do that?
Talking about my players now in the press conference, not knowing what has happened, this doesn't make sense. But I can only tell you I'm never in my life, and I will not be part of Instagram or Facebook or whatever. If this is really true, what you just told me, then I think it's not the right sign. This should not happen in a football team, no matter in which league.
Ralf, I know Erik ten Hag will be concentrating on his own games and his title race, but he'll obviously be looking at United games, the last few. Do a few players have to maybe put an idea in his head that they've got a future here, that they have to perform and show him that they should be here next season? Because at the minute they're not.
Should be the case, but I mean, coming back to tomorrow's game, we also, as I said earlier on, we owe that to our supporters. There will be a couple of thousands travelling to London tomorrow. We owe that to the millions of Manchester United fans all over the world who will watch the game on TV. And it's also a question of pride and honour towards themselves. This is just, we cannot play like the way we played at Liverpool. This is just impossible. And we showed in the last couple of weeks and months that we're capable to play in a different way. So again, tomorrow it's about just showing the basics, being compact, coming behind the ball, being able to attack, to sprint in the right moment, not as we did when we conceded the first goal. I mean, it was never part of the game plan to stand at the halfway line, even more so since Paul Pogba was already humbling across the pitch. He should have laid down or sat down on the ground in that moment, but he was trying to. I was watching that goal that we conceded, obviously quite a few times. He was trying to hobble behind the referee and telling him that he's injured. So we were effectively one player down, but still attacking high up. And against a team like Liverpool, who is probably one of the best in the world in those transitional moments, that wasn't particularly smart from our side. But again, for tomorrow, we just need to be, and we have shown that in quite a few away games, we need to be compact, we need to be close together, we need to be on the front foot still whenever it's possible to put them under pressure and then create our own transitional moments. This is the basics of the game.
Ralf, you kept mentioning in previous press conferences this word sustainability and how some performances have been good but they haven't been sustainable, and you just mentioned it earlier today. How do you build the sustainability, and why do you think it's so brittle at this club? Why do you think the club does have sustainable for 20 minutes and then goes away?
5 games to play. We have to take it game by game, and that's why it doesn't make sense to still speculate about which kind of percentage of chances do we still have to finish fourth. I mean, maybe if we win all 5 games, but even then it's not in our hands, so we cannot influence the other results. We can only influence our own results, and the way we have played recently, I don't think it makes sense to still say yes, we still have a good chance to finish fourth at the end. This doesn't make sense. For me right now, it's only about getting a better performance onto the pitch tomorrow. And then after that game, the next one is also not an easy game at home against Chelsea. So it's not about being sustainable right now. It's about showing a different mentality on the pitch, a different performance, and sustainably changing things. That, again, has got to do with what has to happen in the future.
Just to sustain that quality from the training field that you've mentioned before, and then translate that to the 90-minute performance.
It has been similar. Also in training, we haven't been training on the kind of level that I would have wanted us to train. And obviously we are very far away from that kind of football that I would like to play and that I normally stand for as a manager. We are very far away from that kind of football. I mean, even if I watched Burnley yesterday in the second half against Southampton, and they are fighting for relegation and staying in the league, the way that they defended in the second half didn't allow Southampton a single chance to score in the second half. This is just the way. This is what I mean by basics, and those are the things that we need to try to get implemented again, and that we need to show in the next games.
Okay, last 2 questions, one from me and one from Jay.
Ralf, you mentioned earlier you'd not spoken about your own situation with the board yet, but after what you've been through and what you've seen in the last few months, do you still want to come back and be involved with United next season? Do you see yourself coming back in some role?
at least we have an agreement on that role, but in the end, it's not the question what has been written on paper or what has been agreed upon. It's about what will really happen in everyday life and in everyday's business. This is the question. And in the end, it's also important, how does Erik ten Hag see that? Does he like to speak with somebody like myself? How close does he want to work together? And those are the things we haven't spoken about yet. So for me, I'm not worried about that at all. But for me, it's not a question of having agreed upon a contract or whatever for the next 2 years. It's, in fact, I'm 64 very soon. For me, it's not about having a contract on paper. For me, it's about what will really happen. How much does Erik ten Hag and the board of Manchester United really want to know about my opinion, about my experience, and this is what we haven't spoken about as yet.
Would you like to remain involved?
Well, I'm interested, and I'm very much feeling with this club after those 5.5 months, and I still see what kind of options, what kind of space for improvement, where we could develop. I mean, again, having seen Liverpool play against us, having seen what happened in other clubs, and we also spoke about Arsenal and even Tottenham, why should this not be possible here? I mean, this is one of the biggest clubs in the world. We have perfect training conditions. We have a fantastic stadium. We have massive fan support, probably the best fan support I've ever experienced, apart from Schalke in Germany. This is just amazing. And of course, I would want to be part of that process that has to happen. But again, I cannot right now. I don't know if this is how this can happen and how this is really being appreciated and wanted.
Ralf, when David Moyes took over in 2013, he was very clear that he felt there was a big rebuilding job at that point. Got a long contract, but he was sacked after 10 months. Do you think that the club, if the next 12 months are bumpy under Erik, that first 12 months, the club will hold their nerve and realise that it's going to require patience and some long-term thinking to sort of put the ship right?
I said there were too many ifs and what would happen might happen. I can only tell you from what I've seen and what I've heard and experienced so far, Erik ten Hag is a good choice, if not a very good choice. He has shown that in the past. I'm pretty convinced that he's the best possible coach that you can get right now. And all the other things, as I said earlier on, as sad as it is and as frustrating as it feels right now for everybody involved, and believe me, for me, this is extremely, terribly frustrating, because in the last 10 years, if not 15 years, we only experienced success, myself also, as a sporting director and as a football manager. But in football, you're not always on the bright side. Right now, we are on the other side. But as I said earlier on, the good thing about what happened, one of the very few good things, is that it's crystal clear. It's not that difficult. You don't even need glasses to analyze and to see where the problems are. So now it's only about how do we solve them. And for me, it's clear. It's not enough to do some little minor amendments, some little issues here and there, some minor cosmetic things. No, this is, in medicine, you would see this is an operation at the open heart. So there are more things to be changed than some little things here and some minor things there. And this is the good thing. And for me, this is, if this happens, and if everybody has realized that this has to happen, and if people want to work together, then it makes sense. And then I still believe that it doesn't need and take 2 or 3 years to change those things. This can happen within 1 year. And other clubs not too far away from here have shown that it doesn't take 2, 3, 4 years, that it's possible within 1, 2, maybe 3 transfer windows.
It does require strong leadership, though, on and off the pitch. Without strong leadership going forward, there's no hope.
For sure. But this implies, this is also something that not only one single person as a manager can do. I mean, with all respect to Jürgen and Pep, I'm sure that they didn't do all the things themselves. There were also other people involved in those 2 clubs, top people in certain positions, no matter in which area it was. In order to rebuild and build something that we want to build here in all areas, you have to have top people, and they have to work together in a very close and in a very reliable way.